Behind every world-changing startup, there's someone who believed in it before anyone else did. Someone who saw potential where others saw risk. Someone who quietly made space for big ideas to grow. That someone, for many of the world's most successful tech companies, is Jessica. As a co-founder of Y Combinator, Jessica helped build the most influential startup accelerator in Silicon Valley. Yet she never chased the spotlight. While others competed for headlines, Jessica focused on something more powerful: helping founders succeed. Her belief in the potential of others, often before they believed in themselves, has launched companies like Airbnb, Dropbox, Stripe, and Reddit. Jessica's story challenges the loud, brash stereotype of tech leadership. With a background in writing and a deep belief in human potential, she brought empathy, insight, and quiet strength to a world dominated by speed and noise. Her journey isn't about chasing trends or personal fame. It's about creating conditions where innovation can thrive. She helped shape a startup culture that values authenticity, long-term thinking, and people over hype. This is more than a story of startup success. It's the story of how thoughtful leadership, especially from women, can transform entire industries. Jessica didn't just back the world's most disruptive companies. She helped build the blueprint for how modern startups begin. And her message to future leaders: you don't have to be the loudest person in the room to have the biggest impact. You just have to believe in something and help others believe too. Jessica's journey into tech was anything but scripted. With a degree in English and a background in marketing, she didn't come from the typical world of engineering or venture capital. Her early career was rooted in storytelling and communication, not code or startups. But it was exactly this unconventional background that gave her a unique lens and ultimately helped her reshape Silicon Valley. The pivotal shift came while working in marketing when she met Paul Graham, a computer scientist and essayist. Together with Robert Morris and Trevor Blackwell, they began exploring a bold idea. What if they created a new kind of program to support very early-stage startups? In 2005, they launched Y Combinator. At the time, the concept of a startup accelerator was unheard of. Y Combinator offered small investments, mentorship, and a community, things that traditional venture capital often overlooked. Jessica, who wasn't a programmer or a founder in the traditional sense, took a central role. She became the quiet force behind the scenes, building trust with founders, offering advice, and nurturing the emotional and interpersonal dynamics of startup life. Jessica's strength wasn't in technical expertise, it was in understanding people. She knew how to spot potential and how to help young founders navigate the chaos of building something from nothing. While others focused on market trends and valuations, Jessica focused on creating a space where ideas, and the people behind them, could flourish. Her care, intuition, and consistency became foundational to Y Combinator's culture. She helped shape an ecosystem where the goal wasn't just rapid growth, but meaningful, sustainable success. The key takeaway: you don't need to be a coder to lead in tech. Jessica's story proves that empathy, insight, and belief in others can be just as transformative. Sometimes it's not expertise that changes the world, but the values we choose to champion. In a startup world fueled by bold personalities and rapid-fire pitches, Jessica brought something different: quiet leadership grounded in deep empathy and the power of listening. While others were focused on scaling fast and speaking louder, Jessica built her influence through presence, patience, and connection. At Y Combinator, Jessica played a role that defied industry norms. She wasn't there to dominate the room, she was there to understand it. Founders quickly learned that with Jessica, they had someone who would truly listen. She created space for early-stage entrepreneurs, many of whom were overwhelmed or uncertain, to express their fears, doubts, and ambitions without judgment. She became a champion of the underestimated. Jessica often paid special attention to founders who weren't the most confident or outspoken, but who had compelling ideas and the grit to see them through. Her belief in people helped launch companies like Airbnb, Dropbox, and Reddit, household names that might have been overlooked in a different environment. More than a sounding board, Jessica helped foster psychological safety within YC. Mistakes weren't punishable, they were expected and treated as learning moments. This approach encouraged transparency and vulnerability, which in turn helped startups build stronger foundations. Jessica also quietly challenged the gender imbalance in startups. Her visibility and influence sent a powerful message: women can lead without fitting a mold. She proved that thoughtful, compassionate leadership has a place in tech, and that the startup ecosystem thrives when it welcomes a wider range of voices. Jessica's legacy lies not just in the companies she helped build, but in the culture she cultivated, one where listening, inclusion, and community are seen not as soft skills, but as essential ones. Jessica may not be a household name like some of the founders she's supported, but her influence has shaped the very fabric of modern entrepreneurship. As a co-founder of Y Combinator, Jessica played a critical role in building one of the most successful startup accelerators in the world, supporting thousands of startups, including Airbnb, Dropbox, Reddit, Stripe, and more. But unlike the typical image of a tech leader, she led not with ego or bravado, but with empathy, clarity, and deep commitment. Her contribution was never about headlines. It was about the humans behind the companies. Jessica had an uncanny ability to recognize potential in people, often before they saw it in themselves. She paid close attention to the stories founders told, the way they handled fear, and how they responded to failure. She knew that a founder's mindset was just as important as their product. One of her most influential projects, the book Founders at Work, reflects this ethos. Through candid interviews with dozens of startup founders, Jessica revealed the raw, unpolished truth behind successful companies, the self-doubt, the rejection, the pivot points. The book didn't just document the startup journey, it validated it. It made founders feel less alone. Jessica also helped redefine what leadership could look like in tech. Her quiet, intentional style stood in stark contrast to the aggressive culture often seen in Silicon Valley. She made space for voices that were overlooked, especially introverted or underestimated founders, and consistently advocated for a more inclusive and human-centered startup culture. The impact: a global ripple effect. Startups backed by Y Combinator have created millions of jobs and transformed industries, from finance to healthcare to education. But Jessica's legacy isn't just in unicorn valuations, it's in every founder who felt seen, supported, and believed in during the hardest moments. Leadership doesn't have to shout. Jessica shows that by nurturing others, listening deeply, and creating safe spaces for innovation, you can change the world quietly but powerfully. And Jessica's journey is proof that purpose doesn't need to be loud to be revolutionary. She didn't chase the spotlight. Instead, she built one for others. Through Y Combinator and her own thoughtful presence, she helped thousands of founders discover their potential and pursue bold ideas with confidence. In an industry that often rewards bravado and disruption, Jessica chose empathy, consistency, and vision. She demonstrated that leadership can be nurturing, that success can be collaborative, and that the quietest voice in the room may be the one with the clearest message. You don't need to have all the answers or dominate the conversation to make a difference. Sometimes, the most profound impact comes from helping others find their voice. Ask yourself, what community can you support? What talent can you help grow? How can you build a foundation that lifts others up? Jessica's story reminds us that legacies aren't always built in the spotlight. They're often built in the background in the moments when someone feels believed in, and in that belief, the future is shaped. Quiet leadership is still leadership, and it just might be the most powerful kind.